The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
You know, no matter how much I agree with the idea of cutting payroll taxes, I can't get behind President Trump for signing an executive order for doing so. One, because it's unconstitutional. That's not his job to legislate and decide where the tax money goes. And I understand his frustration if it's on the up and up, that the Democrats are playing political games again with everybody's lives because there's an election coming. And Trump, probably from his point of view, is brilliant by doing this. From a person of my perspective, it pins me up against a wall. Because, remember, ladies and gentlemen, the first stimulus package that was sent out to us, the $1,200 per person, that was an advancement on your 2020 tax return, which means it was going to be the 2021 tax return for next year. Now the Trumpster, if this is allowed to stay, which I think there's going to be a lot of challenges on this one, and rightfully so, because he does not have the right to do that. But if this challenge stays, he's saying we're deferring our 2020 taxes for the rest of the year, and we'll pay them down the line. Well, we were paying them back, Trump. Did you read the bill? Do you know that we were paying back already on the advancement? And now we're going to defer it. And, of course, if he gets elected, he's going to work to make those deferments a permanent thing. So as we watched for months as the governors all became dictators in their own right, Trump decided that he was going to do the same gosh dang thing. If they can do it, I can. I'm the president. And if you're a Trump supporter, how can you be for this? I understand. I am in full support of cutting payroll taxes, eliminating them entirely. But you can't do it this way. He is not the king. He is not the emperor. No matter how much you guys hate the Democrats, and trust me, I am not a fan of that party by any means. No matter how much you despise them and think they're worthless, because as we've seen through the entire coronavirus fiasco, we have been shown that government itself is useless. And it continues to be more apparent each and every day that government is a worthless entity as it relates to the people running the show, not the Constitution, the outline for the government, but the people who don't follow the Constitution, which now includes, and of course this is not his first stomping on the Constitution, but here's Trump doing something that he has no right to do, and now he's forced everybody who has a thinking mind, who understands the situation with the stimulus packages and how they were not our money to play with. It was loaned to us from the government. It was a deferment. It was an advancement on next year's tax return. Well, many of us haven't been making the money we did last year. So those tax returns were barely getting paid back. Now that's deferred. And if you don't elect Donald Trump, and if you don't put a bunch of Republicans in now, if this is allowed to stand, you face the retribution of the Democrats who are going to collect on that money. All of it. That's right. So now, in a brilliant political move for him, I'm sure he thinks this, he forces a whole bunch of people who know what's up to vote for him. Because we, and I'm including me in this mess here, we ain't going to have the money to pay back that's been deferred. If you're deferring it, you think we're going to keep it? We're going to spend it because we need to spend it. Trust me, I know about spending this week. So we get the Trumpster who says, well, since all the governors are being dictators, I'm going to be one too. And I'm just, by proclamation, I'm going to enact this stuff. And I'm guaranteeing there's going to be a fight. But I think from his point of view, it's a brilliant political move. Because we are now, the people who are going to sit this sucker out have to really consider voting for him, because if we don't, and the Democrats get in there, all the taxes that have been deferred are going to be coming due. And we're already technically behind. Most of us are. Some of us have made the money. I get it. So the advancement will have been paid back, and you'll still get a tax return because you pay in more than the $1,200 or whatever you got. But some of us already know that we don't get $1,200 from the federal government ever back in our tax returns. You know, it's $600 or $700 or $800. So there's going to be already a level that the government's going to go, well, you got an advancement of $1,200, and really, your tax return would have only been $700. We need $500 from you. Now, any money that would go towards that is being deferred as well, according to the president's decree. So if the Democrats win, all that is going to come due now, next year, next April. What a mess. What a mess. So we're forced, because many of us don't want those that problem showing up in April next year. And there's a lot of us that are thinking about it like, okay, I personally try to save that stimulus package they sent me, all that money, the Trump change, because that's all it was a little change. They couldn't just give us part of the loan for free, right? They just gave us an advancement. And all those other trillions of dollars were spent elsewhere. Poof. Now they need more money. Trillions of dollars spent, ladies and gentlemen, by the government in a matter of what? 3 or 4 months? Trillions. And they want more. Democrats wanted 3 more trillion. The Republicans wanted 1 trillion. Trump says the heck with it. You know what we're going to do? I don't know how it's going to get paid for, the additional money going to unemployment, because now it's $400 instead of $600, but it's still a lot of money. And Mr. Trump, since you're so worried about your constituents, the American people, us people who have been working, who were essential workers, why aren't we getting an additional $400 a week from the government if people are getting $400 a week to stay home? We're out there working in the so-called crisis, exposing ourselves while the people who are getting money to stay home aren't they're less likely to catch it because they're home, supposedly. It's really frustrating, folks, because the American Constitution has been not only shredded, but it was thrown into a giant bonfire and set ablaze. Not only by the governors of practically every state in the Union, but Trump decides he's going to go full-blown dictator on us. I mean, you can't blame him. Everybody else has been doing it, and he wants to play too. He's been on the sidelines for so long through most of this crisis. And here we are going to be stuck having to actually show up for the election because I was sitting out. Now I have to think about it. I don't want the Democrats to win now. If this stands, there is no way I will be able to afford the Democrats in office. Nope. Not only on the social side of things, but the fiscal side of things. They're going to collect on those taxes. And if you can't pay your taxes, well, that'd be very tragic for you. But Trump says if you elect him, he's going to try to make things permanent. Now a campaign promise. Bribery. He went the route of the Democrats. He's going to bribe you with something. Except this something is going to put a lot of pressure on you if you know how things are shaking out on the tax side of things. If you get more than $1,200 a year and you're still doing what you're doing, then this may not affect you so much. But those of you who get less than $1,200 back from the federal government, this is going to affect you big time. Because if you don't get $1,200 and you got that $1,200 check as an advancement, there's going to be a deficiency there, and the government, led by the Democrats, if they win, are going to go, well, you have to pay your taxes. And if you don't pay your taxes, there are going to be penalties. Now Trump says, screw it, you don't have to pay any of that stuff back that you were paying back. And if I get elected, can you believe that? If I get elected, I'll try to make these permanent. This whole exercise in COVID-19 has shown how big of a joke politicians are, and how they run the government is worthless. It doesn't protect you. It puts you in harm's way. And when the danger's on, they look the other way because they don't want to offend certain groups because they may cause retaliation. See, they don't think you're going to retaliate, ladies and gentlemen. What are you going to do? You're good little Americans. You pay your taxes all the time. You'll find a way to pay the taxes, although if you're still broke, where are you going to come up with that money, folks? Where are you going to come up with that money? We'll be right back, folks. Quick break. More on the John Lebang Show. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going?
Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an Ibrader convention.
So I suppose the best parts of Trump's presidency are also the worst part of Trump's presidency. He has gone in there and drained the swamp, but not to the point of getting rid of people. He just sucked out all the water so we could see all the dirt bags all over, and we can see how useless government is in the hands of the two political parties. I've said for a long time we need to get rid of these two parties. Have no parties. Make it illegal. That means we'd have to actually read up on these candidates. But you know how that works. Most people can't get out of the groupthink. So the political parties, no matter how much they have let us down, have caused us trouble, have implemented these tyrannical new rules by executive decree. Realize there hasn't been a lot of legislating going on. There's been a lot of decrees by the leader of a state, or, as we've seen with the Trumpster, the country. He's just doing what the Democrats and the Republican governors did. How can you blame them? If you're the Democrats. I can't wait to see the argument over this, because there's definitely gonna be a legal battle, but it's also gonna show who is on whose side, I guess. And I'm telling you folks, there ain't nobody. There isn't anyone that is on your side. Nobody cares about the American taxpayer, only that you supply taxes to them. But because of the incompetence that we have witnessed, not only over the past month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, but years and decades of politicians, we need to just end giving them money in the first place. We'll see if that'll ever happen. Not with the current crop of politicians, and not with the people who depend on the government. And this is no personal attack on people who receive government money, but it really isn't government money. It's somebody, they had to take it from someone to give to you. And that's not fair, in my humble view. But what do I know? I'm just a little guy out here trying to weed through all the madness. And after last week's show, I'm sure you guys need a little step back on the madness, because our tinfoil hats were in supersonic mode. Then we have the blast in Beirut, or the Beirut blast as it trended on all the social medias. A lot of people are talking about what happened, and a lot of conspiracy theorists are onto something here. Because if you look just beyond, I'm sure many of you have watched the videos. I mean, it was something that was shared all over social media. But if you watch the videos, you can clearly see something streaking in from the upper corner and slamming into the ground. People were talking mini nukes, this and that. Of course, a lot of that's drama, because we'll never know. But y'all should look into the rods of God and understand that there are weapons that you're not familiar with. And it would be be quite easy to use one of those to do such an attack. You have somebody set fire to the warehouse so smoke gives you cover, right? They do that a lot in military operations. When they send special forces in areas, they'll throw smoke bombs so you can't see them, and then these people move up on you. It's the same kind of tactic. Little fire started, then you send something in to make a boom. And if you know anything about kinetic weapons, they pretty much are pulverized, and you wouldn't be able to tell what weapon did it from the other structure material that remains after the blast. So we have that. And it was hard getting ready for the show because of everything going on. I mean, I could rant, ladies and gentlemen, and like I did in the early parts of the show. But it's doing us no good. It is doing us no good. What are we going to do about a government filled with inept people who are only doing things for their own personal political motives? They're not there to do what's right for America or for you. They don't care what happens to you. And even though the Trumpster looks like he's doing something for people, on the surface, the people who don't understand the ramifications of what he's attempting to do here will probably get behind him because they want that extra money, especially if they're not back to work. In a world that we probably should have never shut down, now that we think about it. And this 2-week shutdown that we were supposed to have, that was supposed to cut the curve, has turned into months and months of normality. And the latest stuff is they're saying that, beyond the mask, we're going to have to wear the face shields or the goggles. That's the talk out of the so-called experts. That's their best defense against this. And we got the president and Fauci, Bill Gates and others, all on the same side on vaccines. Got to get them. We're pushing real hard, Operation Warp Speed, to get those vaccines. But we know, folks, like the flu shot, it's not a vaccine. And even Fauci and others are telling us we're going to need more than one shot because one vaccine probably won't do it. So what they're saying is it's going to be as common as the flu shot. They're going to want you to take the corona shot. And it's probably going to have to be a yearly shot. That way the pharmaceutical companies can make huge profits at your expense. Not coming up with some kind of cure for coronavirus, which has been around for decades and decades, as long as we can know and remember. They're even saying that the current novel coronavirus is 70 or 75% like the old virus. Well, our bodies are probably immune. And they've said also that if you might have the antibodies from a prior coronavirus, and that would say you were testing positive. See the whole thing? They're using all these tests, and I don't know why any of you are going for tests. Why are you enabling these people to lie to you? By showing up for a test and taking a test, you're submitting yourself to the medical tyranny that is currently at work. But everything's been tyranny, hasn't it, folks? We've got political tyranny from the certain groups out there that are rioting and burning down and causing destruction throughout the country. Murdering, maiming, injuring people in the process. We've got medical tyranny. We've got governmental tyranny from the governors, and now the president. Tyranny is abound in the United States of America. And why is it abound? It's because the people surrendered their freedom. They did. I didn't surrender my freedom, John. Sure you did. Sure you did. You've submitted to all that has gone on. Or you've been part of the problem. One or the other. Because I don't see many out there offering a solution to any of this. Delay tactics, push it down the road, get us a vaccine, get us a shot, stimulus package. We need a solution to the problem, not more government suggestions on how to cope with the problem. They want us to cope with it all as if it's going to be here forever. And we should be scared of a boogie-woogie virus forever. Humanity has lived a long time, folks. We've existed for countless ages. We've survived pandemics and much more. Sometimes that's nature's way of culling the herd. In this case, it's a little more built around the man gods of the world wanting to control us. Because even though there are plenty of deaths derived from this, many of them, including here in Michigan, are the cause of putting patients in with old people who were susceptible to these types of viruses and who had the most likely chance of getting extremely sick and perishing from this. Our governor, Witless Gretchen here in Michigan, is guilty of that. Why there hasn't been charges brought up against her for criminal negligence? Because I could have told you from the very beginning, you don't take old sick people and put them with the healthy sick people and expect the healthy sick people to stay healthy. So to me, it was a deliberate act or an act of negligence. Regardless, our governor not only should be removed from office, but criminal charges should be placed on her and the other governors who did the exact same thing. And if you're telling me you're just doing what other governors do, Witless, that tells me you don't have much of a brain. Because if you couldn't think it through and you were just doing what everybody else did, which you pretty much were, you followed along, you're not a leader. And what we need is someone to lead us to some solution to all of this. And I can tell you the current crop of politicians, whether it be on the Democrat side or the Republican side, none of them are going to lead us through this. Which means we have to lead ourselves. And here we go back to self-governance. And as long as the current political class is ruling over us and dictating to us how we should live, how we should go about our business in our daily routines, we're never going to be able to self-govern. And we have an election coming up. And I can guarantee you that a vast, vast majority of people who are going to participate in the election, the real way, not these mail-in things, just go down there, are still going to vote for one of the two parties. They're not going to shun the two parties that got us into this mess in the first place. Time for a quick break, folks. Second half of the show on the other side of this. Don't move a muscle.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
I have solutions, but I don't know if it's even worth my time or my effort to put them out there. Because the solutions will solve the problem, yet it's going to cause a lot of pain to a lot of people because it's going to require some pretty hefty sacrifices to get us there. And what I've noticed from most people is that they're too comfortable in their lives. They don't want to risk their pensions. They don't want to risk Social Security. They don't want to risk what they've built in their life, whatever that may be, to make this country a better place, to keep their nice and safe life. They're willing to go along to get along. And that's why they're going to vote for one of the two parties once again. And with Trump's recent move, it takes the people who were maybe closer to Trump's point of view, but wanted to sit this one out because, well, Trump hasn't done exactly what we expected of him. And those of you on the left are just going to go, see, wow. And they're going to point out a whole bunch of things that he has done. But it wasn't so long ago that Trump was a Democrat. And many of the actions he's taken are very Democrat in nature. All these executive orders, these tyrannical dictates from the governors as well as the president in this. And yes, I know you people who are big Trump supporters, you're saying he's doing something because Congress isn't doing anything. Well, that's not his job. That's your job. If Congress is a waste of time, which they are, then you need to get rid of them. And you don't need to run back to the party you got rid of last time, Democrats. All you people who continually vote for Democrat and this country continues to get worse. How many years have you been voting for Democrats and the country still goes in the gutter? You can't blame the Republicans for that. The Republicans have no spine whatsoever. They can't remove Obamacare. Can't repeal it whatsoever. When they had a full majority in the House and the Senate and the President, they couldn't do it because they didn't have the guts to do it. They didn't have the spine to do it. And there was always somebody like the John McCain's or the Mitch McConnell's there to foul things up. And it's all political theater, right? They set that up in the back channels of the Capitol there when they talk about, because they all know. You've heard of the whip, right? You send somebody out there, the minority whip or the majority whip, and his job or her job is to find out how all the members of the party are going to vote on a specific item. And then they start cracking the whip, making deals, saying, hey, we got this on you, so you need to vote this way. So they know how that was all going to vote. They knew Romney was, in fact, they probably encouraged Romney to be the one guy to oppose the president. Just like John McCain, they knew well in advance that McCain was going to be a problem, even though he had voted for it when he votes for the Obamacare repeal when Obama's president, knowing that there was going to be a veto there. But then when Trumpster's in there and they can actually do it, he turns traitor. No, I'm not supposed to talk about people that have passed away, right? That's just not right to some people, even though it's the truth. That's where we've gone to. I had somebody recently point out to me, young person, that that label, I said something and it kind of labels people. And I don't get into labeling people. Although that person does label themselves in other ways. If I were to point it out and they were listening, they would know who I was talking about, and then I'd probably have trouble, and I don't want to do that. So when we have these situations that we're currently in, where the populace is just doesn't understand anything, they've been taught by the education system that now the teachers, that's another thing, and I know I'm diverting here, but the teachers don't want to go back to school. They like that extra money coming in, just sitting home, not having to deal with the children. Yeah. Who wouldn't? I mean, 20, 30 kids in a classroom's got to be annoying. It's got to be a little bit annoying. I know you people who have kids might not say that, but your kids are always great, but other people's kids are kind of brats if you think about it. And from people who, don't have children, most people's kids are brats. That's because we spoiled them. You can see that with almost the entire millennial crowd. They've been so spoiled they don't even know how great things have been for them. They have their cell phones that they can be constantly communicating, socializing, whether they're at work or not. They can still social. We didn't have that back in my day. To communicate, you actually had to go face to face with somebody or sit on a phone that was tethered to the wall. And all the luxuries that they just take for granted. None of these things existed. Like the internet. I don't know what these children would do, and that's another thing. I don't know why parents allow their young children to have these cell phones or communication devices. That's laziness, right? Back in my day, if you wanted to communicate with the kid, the kid wasn't going to be miles away because parents didn't allow their kids to go way, way, way. They kept them where they could see them or where they knew they were, where they could be home in 5 or 6 minutes, 10 minutes tops. Home by light, when the lights came on. It's a whole different world now. These kids think they're adults or have all the privileges of adulthood and have done absolutely nothing to earn those privileges. So when they grow up from these, unfortunately, single mother households that the dad's been an absentee dad, or vice versa, because it goes both ways. But these kids grow up without parents or people to guide them and to show them that life isn't just a breeze. Because what I've noticed with single mothers, I'm not disparaging you at it by any means. Something I've observed is these single moms overspoil their children, try to overtake care of them to compensate for the lack of the baby daddy who is either a criminal or just doesn't do his part in raising the kids. And dads, you have to be there. And once you have a kid, dad needs to be there all the time, and so does mom. And it's got to be a team. And even if you don't like each other, you got to work as a team. But we're so stuck on this whole thing in our little lives that we allow these politicians to get back to the whole point of what I was talking about there. Get diverged there and go into different directions. But people are so into their own world that they don't look deeply into these politicians, and they allow the politicians, and they on many levels they think the politician is a ruler over them. That's why I say Gretchen Whitmer should be arrested, because she works for the people, and on our behalf, willingly or due to incompetence, she sent people in to infect other people, which ended up killing old folks because of that decision. That's criminal negligence. And we have that on all levels of government. So the only solution to that, ladies and gentlemen, is to stop voting for the two parties that are part of the greater criminal negligence that they partake in. And how do we do that? Got to vote for someone else? Well, voting, for the most part, has proven ineffective. And I've talked of it many times before, the only way is to cut off their money supply. That's it. And to cut off their money supply, you can't go to work and you can't buy things. Because that's how the governments get their money supply. Through things you do, whether it's being a productive human being or by being a consuming human being. Those are the two ways. So, to avoid the incompetence, we have to stop participating in the system that is destroying not only our lives, the economy, everything. They have terminated this crop of politicians from your local all the way up to the presidency. This crop in charge right now has done more damage to this country than at any other time in history, or politicians have done any other time in history. And they should all be fired in November. All of them. Anybody who is up for office that's an incumbent should be gone. Everybody in Congress, gone. The Senate, gone. Put in new people that don't have career political agendas at hand, who don't want to be a career politician. But are you going to do that, America? I have no faith in you. I have no faith that the American people will shun the Democrats entirely. Because that party needs to be shunned. It needs to be dismantled and destroyed. The Republican Party are filled with a bunch of linguini spines versus radicals. So you need to shun the radicals and you need to fix the linguini spines and get them out of there and get people in there that'll actually follow the Constitution and not back down when their political opponents call them names, like the bullies on the Democrat side. Because anytime the Democrats want something and they can't get their way, they pull out the bully tactics, calling you names, saying you're certain things, even when you're not, but that's their tactic. So, if we want to change things for the better, there is only one thing we can do, folks, and that's not vote for the establishment parties. And every time we go to the ballot box, we switch it up. That way we don't have people with career agendas in place, and they're not so easily bought by the so-called lobby groups, which are more like hitmen groups that control our little politicians. We'll be right back, folks, in the final segment. Just stay tuned, please.
Smoke them if you got them.
Because the John Lebang Show will be right back.
After this.
That's guaranteed. Yes. Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call. You're listening to the John Lebang Show. It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it.
Again, welcome back, folks. Thank you for stopping in or continuing to listen to what we got going here today. I didn't have a whole lot actually planned for this broadcast, just things that were on my mind. I mean, it's hard. The minutia of the news has gotten so bleak and so ridiculous that I'm kind of done with it. We know about all the protests. It just won't stop. The shortages that have reached almost every part of our lives. I mean, you can't even get ammo anymore. Go to Cabela's and see how that works out. So we're running short on supplies. The government continues to want to print money, yet not give us any money, just give us advancements on next year's stuff, or just defer it all. We're worried about a second lockdown because they're sure as heck teasing that. They're floating that idea. It's not going to work in many places. People are not going to want to sit home anymore. Whatever they're moving us towards, whatever the end game is, and I think we're not that far off from it, actually, folks. Of course, I don't have some kind of crystal ball. I can just go by what I know, what I see, how I see things playing out. But we're not too far away. And with all the shortages, it's getting hard to prep anymore. To get all your stuff prepped up in time for whatever's coming. If there's something coming. But I don't know about you, but I talk to a lot of people and everybody feels like something more is coming, something bigger is coming. And we have the October surprise. We have what we talked about last week with Ritual 21. That's what we're dubbing it, of course. But and there's some new information on that. Just go to the website and look up this week's Daily Brew. If you're not familiar with our website, if you're new to the channel, we have a pretty cool website filled with all kinds of stuff we're talking about here, stuff that relates to independent music. We have our own independent music show, and we also have our little Bangerverse, which is kind of an audio drama comedy thing going on there. So you should check that out. We also have semi-daily. We try to do it as often as we can. But it's hard to keep up with the news. And sometimes the news is just minutia, and we don't think there's really much to post that day, so we'll pass it up. But it's called the Daily Brew. You should check it out. Most of our show prep is right there. So we don't really have to have items to talk about because we've been covering most of the items all week on the Daily Brew, and we have it kind of stored in our brain. But the news doesn't matter anymore. The shortage or shortages are something that's really important and matter a great deal. And why there's shortages? Well, that's because the conditions were created. We talked about that months ago on how they were creating conditions for all this to happen. They knew it was going to. They had legislation in January they were working on for coronavirus, and it didn't even hit the U.S. I mean, we stopped travel from China on the 31st of January. A number that's kind of related to China 31. You'll have to look into that to know more. Go to the website and check that out. We got a lot of cool articles up there, too, that I would suggest you start reading up on to get your brain more in tune with what's going on. Because if you're questioning what the hell's going on, we can tell you, or we can try to help you get through that by going to the website, coming to this broadcast. But we have the election coming up, and there's nobody I want to vote for yet. It looks like the Trumpster is going to force a great deal of us to pick a side. And the side we're going to have to pick are the side that's going to either defer or get rid of the taxes, payroll taxes, because if the other side wins, then they're going to come collecting on a lot of us. And a lot of us aren't going to have the money. And it's going to put us in a real tight spot, having the government going, you owe us money that we gave you. We didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for that $1,200. But I can guarantee you, if Trump doesn't win and they come collecting, and again, that's my caveat, if they come collecting for the difference in tax money, how are we going to pay for that? I know, from my personal point of view, there's no way I can come up with that money. I was saving it to pay it back. Then something huge came up for me, which sucked me dry of that money. Gone. There was none of it left. You know, you keep things for an emergency, and I had an emergency and had to use it. But now I'm in a bad position, especially if they come collecting. And I can tell you, most people didn't save that money. They used it. They used that money. And it bugs me, again, because why are people getting $400 more a week on top of their unemployment to stay home while I'm forced to go to work and I'm not getting anything from the government? I'm helping this economy stay alive. There are many of us, the essentials out there, and the ones that are back to work, helping the country stay alive. And there's no bonus there for them. But if you want to stay home and be a unemployed worker, well, you get a bonus and you can stay home. $400 from the federal government, according to Trump, by dictatorial powers. It was $600 prior to that with the CARE Act. And you know, the Democrats and the Republicans couldn't decide because they can never get along when it comes down to they oppose things. When it's all on for one agenda, when they're both in for one agenda, and it's going to screw us entirely, which the CARE Act looks like it. These, you know, they use words to make you think it's one thing when it's totally the opposite. That's what the government does. Remember the Affordable Care Act that was never affordable? The CARE Act that cared about nothing but paying off a whole bunch of people, and they only cared about giving you an advancement on next year's tax return. Yes. Which means you better make that money this year so you have that money paid back to the federal government so you don't owe money. They caught us. And Trump playing along now in a brilliant move, like I said earlier, for him, he forces people to now vote for him. It was an incredible move on his part for his campaign. Now, it's not good for the little people when a guy can do some kind of dictatorial move like that. And with about 5 minutes left, what are the Democrats going to do? You know they're going to cry. They've already started crying and moaning, pissing and whistling over this whole thing because he just did an end run around their power. And you can't do that to Congress, especially when Democrats are running the show. They were doing this stalling tactic to make us all suffer, or make the people on unemployment suffer. Because who has really done anything for the essential worker? The person that has not gone on unemployment, the person who fought through, who has dealt with the exposure and the piss poor behavior that most customers have these days, because they're not used to this change and they want it to go back when they should know it's never going to go back. And that's not me speaking pessimistically. That's me telling you what they're telling you. By December 21st and around Christmas, this whole pregnancy of the COVID virus will result in a birth, right around Christmas, of the next world order. When those vaccines become available and possibly mandatory. Because if the Democrats win, they're going to continue with the vaccines, but they're going to tell you have to take it. Now, the lip-wristed, linguini-spined Republicans, maybe not so much. But the Trumpsters behind it. Bill Gates is behind it. Fauci's behind it. Bricks is behind it. Sounds like everybody's on the same page when it comes to vaccines. And they're just trying to get us there. Bide time. Keep us pacified until that day comes where they say, we've got a vaccine. Everybody who wants one can get one. And then when everybody who wants one gets one, they'll go, well, it still isn't enough to keep us all healthy, so we're going to have to make everybody do it. Come get your vaccines or you can't work. Come get your vaccines or you can't go to the grocery store. I know that sounds very conspiratorial on my behalf. I understand that. But when we look at the track record of 2020 and how this thing has developed, and when they tell us it's going to be one thing and it always turns out to be the complete opposite. When they tell you that we weren't supposed to, no mask in the beginning, remember that? And all of a sudden, masks. Now it's mandatory. Mandatory Sharia law, folks, in the United States. Next things are the shields and the goggles. You can only have so many people in your establishment, if you can have your establishment open, because certain businesses can't be open because they say so. Not because you're running some illegal operation. No, you're running a gym or something like that. Something that was perfectly legal before all this. And which was encouraged to keep your health up and to make you stronger. Have you thought about that, folks? Why are they keeping the gyms closed? Well, maybe us being weaker and not as strong and not being able to train. When the tough stuff comes up, which we haven't lived through any of the tough yet. This has been easy. When the tough stuff comes, we're not going to be in shape to oppose it. Well, we've seen some tough stuff with the riots and stuff, all perfectly executed to benefit not only these groups, but the groups behind the groups. In our lives, no matter how dramatically they've been changed through all of this, doesn't matter. Because these people know better than you how to control your life. And you're just going to have to submit to it. Or take my advice and ship all those buggers out in November. Every single one of them from top to bottom. Anyways, folks, we're up against it. Thank you for tuning in this week. Hope you are safe and happy and doing the best you can to prepare. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, you can go to the website www.jlebang.com to keep you occupied until I return. This is John Lebang, signing off for now. Thank you for listening.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have